Are we live?
All right.
On the internet?
Yes, we are. Well,
Heyo.
welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Gridiron Survivor team. We are building an application. Just a little bit about Gridiron Survivor. It's a project that I put together to help individuals, self-taught and boot campers, kind of fill that gap in between getting it for their first job and graduating, or kind of learning things on their own. So this project alone has a lot of team collaboration. We do agile, we do sprints, we do code reviews, unit testing, a lot of learning, a lot of failing, a lot of crying, right? Yeah, yeah, that's right. Um, but overall, the goal is to have everybody gain like real world experience, because this is actually for a client, which is a friend of mine, Rudy. We're building a NFL Survivor application from the ground up, and it's been fun. And today we are doing a design kickoff for our alpha phase, as well as a sprint demo. So first things first, I wanted to thank our sponsors. And Chris, can you tell us a little bit about Pastel?
Yeah, Pastel has been an awesome tool that we used. That is great to use to review our site. So when our site, we're ready to view a lot of the front end stuff and how it looks. We're able to comment right on it. It does automatic mobile mode, desktop mode, easy way to add comments, and easy way to have like a little checklist to go through and resolve some of the issues or comments that are brought up in a visual review of our app. So thank you, Pastel, for sponsoring us and providing us a way to help us, do site reviews with us and with our stakeholders.
Very cool. Thank you, Chris. And then Jason, can you tell us about Front End Mentor?
Of course I can, Shashi. Yeah, we
Yes.
wanted to thank Front End Mentor, which has a plethora of learning paths, challenges, and solutions for people that are at all ranges of skill levels. They offer a platform to enhance your coding skills by building realistic projects. Their professionally designed challenges provide hands-on experience in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So big shout out to them for supporting the team.
Sweet. Thank you, Jason. And then our latest sponsor, Richard, can you tell us about AppWrite?
Absolutely. So AppWrite is an open source community friendly platform that lets you build any application at any scale and creates user logins, databases, and stores your files. And also it allows server-side rendering, messaging, updated render runtimes, and the new features that come along with it. And personally, I use AppWrite myself for my personal projects, and I really like all the new features that come with it. And thank you so much for sponsoring us, AppWrite.
Sweet. Thank you, Richard. And again, thank you all sponsors. It really helps us build this project, because we use every one of these applications for certain things and many more. But we couldn't have done without you guys. Awesome. So a little bit of surprise. I have a demo to show you guys, and I didn't want to tell you guys because I was still prepping it up. But I'm gonna showcase. Where is it? Where is it? The ESPN Eliminator. It is active and running right now. I didn't know it was up to until I went over with Jaina. But this will help everybody understand what an Eliminator Survivor pool is. I already created some entries, but if you can see here, right, I have two groups. So I have two groups, and for this group one, LGT, I have 3 entries. Okay. So what I can do is I can go into this entry, and you can see who I chose. I chose the Bears. Oh my gosh, that's a bad pick. I'm gonna switch it. Okay, as you can see, as I clicked it, right, it notified me that I switched a selection. Currently, it's still active because the weeks have not been played yet, and so it will stay active until I'm eliminated. Per se, if I chose the Packers and the Eagles won, this entry is out, and it will probably be inactive or something. And so then you kind of understand like how to do that. So as you can see here, if I choose another team, right, like the Titans, that's going to become my pick for that week for that entry. And so if I go back to my other entries, I wish it showed. I'm gonna go to groups here, which it showed which team I selected, which it doesn't, but hopefully our design does that, which is would be fantastic. And so now if I go back in here, the Titans is selected as my week 1 pick. I can go down, see the schedule. I can change my pick if I want to. If I want to, switch to the Falcons, I can totally do that. But the also cool thing right now is it allows you to go to the following weeks as well. For our survivor pool, you can't do that. You can view it, but you can't make a selection, right? This one actually allows you to make picks for future weeks. In Rudy's game, you can't do that. So the setting is that you can't make future picks. You have to wait till that first week is done, and there's going to be a window that you can make a selection and update a selection. And you have to stay within that window. It keeps the user engaged. It keeps the user active as well. Because if I made my picks for all 17 weeks, I won't ever come back. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose, right? But to keep it active, every week is going to be different. But if you wanted to go right now to ESPN, you can sign up for this for free and navigate and move around to kind of get a flow of how this works. And it will showcase what we're trying to build here. We're trying to make a better UI, a better user experience. We're trying to make this case so that it fits Rudy's current scope, but we're also trying to add features as well. Like we want to add in the ability to send notifications to all users at the same time with email and text. We want to eventually create like a smack talk area, right? Like an area where you can smack talk to other users. And also adding AI as well, like predicting picks. Right now, it's just telling you who's picking who based on users. But what if there's a way for AI to kind of help you or give you some information to help you get that edge? Because as I make picks, right, if I chose the Packers this week, the second week, I wonder if it does it right now. Yep. So you see that I already used it. So if this week is done, this should be grayed out, and I can't choose them. So it becomes more difficult as I go, week after week. When I get to week 10, 9 teams, 9 of my best teams are probably chosen already, and I have slim pickings to choose teams that I think are going to win. Any questions from the team?
Sounds like we have our app done. Call it a day.
We do not, because they don't have a lot of the bells and whistles that we will have. They do have some functionality. It's nice. But other than that, like it's a working model.
A question: are we going to have it? I like how it has all the groups that you're in. Is that a part of our MVP, or is that going to be part of the next round?
You mean our alpha?
Our alpha, sorry. Yes.
I will wait to have Jaina show you the designs after I'm done, and that way you can see it. Any other questions for this functionality for the Eliminator? I hope this kind of clarifies some questions you may have.
Yeah, I have a question. As far as the layout, are we going to, and maybe Jaina will answer this as far as her presentation, I feel like there's just a lot of scrolling. Are we maybe focusing more on giving this more of a like one-page feel with less like fold? I feel like more of that information could span, like if you go up to the selections again, like where was that?
This one?
Yeah. I mean, what I'm seeing is a really long scroll to go through all of them, where I feel like ours could be a little bit more cohesive and easier to access the information. I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud. Like I would be frustrated that I have to scroll all the way down through all those when there's so much real estate to the other margins.
And I think one thing that I didn't show you guys yet too is the mobile version of this. If you look at this, right, same thing, right? You do have to scroll like a lot. It is stacked, but you still have to. I mean, they're right now week 1 to week 4. I think has at least 16 games because there's 32 teams, and then 16 of them play one another, and so that does make it like it's going to be long no matter what, but you can definitely reduce it. Like there's a lot of like each one of these teams are the real estate. It's using a good amount of it. It does look nice, but as you mentioned, when do you balance that out, right? From
Mhm.
functional to user experience to like still looking nice, but using the real estate that's available, because it is very valuable. Because if I hear like if I really want to go down to the Monday night game, how do I get there, right? Because I want that Monday night game. I already know it's the last one, and it's like, oh, I gotta scroll through all this, and then I'm gonna choose the 49ers.
But that's the thing on ours is we're not going to be going to the future. It's going to be 1 week at a time, so that'll eliminate a lot of scrolling.
That's also true.
Yes, but this is for that one individual week, and one individual week will have 16 games most of the time.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because even in week 2, like if I go to, there's gonna be bye weeks that starts happening like week 6 or 7, something like that. If I go to week 7, there might be still 14 games, right? Maybe 12 games, right? Like
Yeah.
it's still a scroll. Monday night is like always prime time. There's always good matchups there, and I scroll all the way down to the bottom to get there. So good questions.
Very cool.
I hope that will, as you play around with it, it will clarify some questions that y'all have, because I know many people have asked that too. Is like, oh, I don't understand what this app is supposed to do and how it's supposed to work. It will kind of simulate that, but obviously the week 1 is not done. It hasn't happened yet, so you won't know how it looks like if your team is eliminated, or if you select the 49ers and you need to make another selection. It kind of simulates that by signifying, oh, you've used this for week 2, week 1, right? You've used this one for week 3, so you probably want to switch to a different team.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll play around with it, and I think it'll definitely help us understand, especially once we see the new design review. I think it'll definitely help.
Yeah, that could answer a few of the questions that we're
Yeah.
probably all marinating right now.
Okay, well, since you want to see the design so badly,
All right.
Lena, are you ready?
Yeah. I think, can I take over presenting?
Yep. Yeah, you have to do present,
Screen
and
share. I'll
then
do window.
choose that one, and then I will bring it up for you.
Oh, it's like passing the baton. Let me know when it's up. I can't, it's not
I do
notifying me.
not see it.
Was passing the baton a football joke? I didn't understand. I don't watch football.
Maybe. I don't know either.
Not football. It's track and field.
No, it's what they do in overtime for football, Jason. They do a
Oh,
relay
sick.
race.
Oh,
After a coin flip?
Yep.
Maybe we
Multiple.
should all just like make up what we think football rules are and make a terrible app, but you just have to guess at how it works. Pass the baton.
I still don't see your screen, Jana. When you present, you can choose share screen, and then you can choose which screen you want to share, what window or whatnot. Okay, there you go.
It should be there.
I got it now.
All right. So
Let me switch.
our design does not have all the bells and whistles that what was it, the ESPN version does, but this is our first foray into the organization of everything we need to show, and the entries, the leagues, and just how those all work together. So this is essentially putting the structure around all of it. So I took user stories that Shashi wrote up and mapped them to designs. So the user story is, a digestible action a user can take, and that could be a really large task we're biting off, or it could be something really small. So for the first one, as a player, I want to view all the leagues I'm part of. So that encompasses a new page that shows their leagues. We might think about in the future, like, join a league and doing more like self-serve actions for users or players. But it sounds like right now that's all like control on the admin side. So the admin will add players to a league and they'll show up here. For this display, it's pretty simple right now. We could add in support for like a custom kind of avatar or banner image for a league. This is what it looks like without, just really simple, like a card you can click on. We could also add in like a little alert or status that will highlight if you need to make your pick per week. Again, bells and whistles, like this works just fine. So as a player, I want to know how many survivors are left in my league. We can show that right here. And yeah, so okay, next up, you click into a league. Next user story here is I want to view all of my entries per league. So you click into your league, you see the league name appear. We'll add in some sort of like back navigation to like go back to your league page, showing the count again, survivor count, and then also what week it is. So you'll see that here. I want to know if I need to make a pick. So that's what's shown here. So an entry is essentially like a ticket, raffle ticket. I bought 5 raffle tickets for this league, and you want to know if it's still available, if that like raffle ticket has been eliminated or not. So that's how I'm like thinking about entries. So that's entry 1, 2, and 3. We'll have a status attached to each entry. And this is where we can get clever. So instead of saying active, we can say still alive or surviving. We could do something fun like that. And then to make a pick. So this is what you would see if you haven't made any picks. All of these buttons would be highlighted and say make pick. And to enter into that, you would click it and go to the pick page. And so this is for week 2. For the first entry, we want to make sure players know which entry they're making a selection for. And then once they've picked one, all of the other games will not be selectable. You can only pick one like team per week, even if there are like multiple games in that week. And so once you've done that, you can go back to your main page. And then you'll see it's like an autosave. We don't want to add in any sort of submit button because that would be really easy to miss and get kind of irritating if you forgot to click save and then you went back. And this also makes it really easy to edit and go back at any time while the edit period is still open. And so that button will flip over to show edit pick. So it's no longer highlighted as action is needed. I want to change, as a player, I want to change my entry, my single entry pick. So again, that would be going back. And then we can also show the team selection in this space. If we have enough room to show the team name, we will. But the nice thing is we can show logos. It's NFL. It looks great. Everyone knows what that means. And then I wanted to show what an eliminated entry would look like. So say this is week 3. You have 2 entries, you're still alive, you can make picks for, but your 3rd entry got eliminated. So you still see it, but it's kind of, well, you know, there's more pressure on these 2 to make the right pick. And then coming up soon, I don't have a design yet, we'll want to show past weeks, so you can go back and see the history of your picks, and that'll be probably a simpler table. So any questions, anything I missed, Shashi?
I have a question real quick, and I just wanted to say this looks really fantastic. You did a great job. What's the advantage of us seeing the eliminated team data at all?
Like the entry itself?
Yeah.
Because then because when I'm making my picks, I might forget, right, that my entry's out, or knowing that, I only have 2 out of 3 left. I don't need to signify it, and then you can also, when you go to past weeks, like you can see kind of the historical value of what you've chosen, and if you want to, make a different selection or not. It just allows you to kind of see visually like what's still there, opposed to like if we removed it all, then it's like two entries. I'm like, where is my third entry? Like, what happened to it? Like, what,
Sure.
it just like
Mhm.
tells you right away, like, oh, it's because you're eliminated. Like, we don't need
Yeah.
to do anything with it. But
Yeah.
this one was gone.
Visual cues are
yeah.
important. Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
And I have a question here. So basically on the screen, let's say, so entry 1 is technically for week 1, right?
That is incorrect.
That's week 3. That's just 3
Yeah.
entries, as in 3 separate sets
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
picks.
So I'm very confused as to
Don't
why
worry.
there's
I had to learn all
Okay.
of this like today.
Okay.
It was very confusing for me too.
Okay, so let's go.
It's like
let's
a raffle
go-
ticket. So you can buy
Yeah.
multiple raffle tickets, and that's your entry.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So every entry is independent. If I choose the Cardinals for entry 1 and I make it through, and entry 2 did not choose the Cardinals, in week 3, entry 2 can still choose Cardinals because I'm independent.
But you
right?
lose that option but you're now
Correct.
down to only 2 entries rather than 3
Yeah,
chances
yeah.
to win.
And
okay.
so if I can
Yes.
easily choose the same teams per entry if I want to, or I could choose different ones. But every entry is an independent selection
Mhm.
for the user. It just so happens that in Rudy's game, I have the chance to choose up to 5 entries, and those 5 entries gives me 5 chances, right? Different chances to win the prize.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that costs money to enter each time.
Correct. Yep. And you also, Jana made a good point too. At the beginning of the season, I have to make as many entries as I want to enter. I cannot in week 2 say, "Oh, now I want to add 2 more entries
Right.
to make 5." No, you
only
can't
at
do
the
that.
beginning.
Yep. So you have to survive, right? At the beginning, you have to decide right away: do I want 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? If I want all 5, it gives me 5 chances, but that means I have to, pay more to get 5 entries on the side. But if I only have 1 entry, then I only have 1 chance for the whole season to win this.
Mhm.
Hence the
Yeah,
name
and that sounds
Survivor.
like hence the name. That sounds like an admin function now where, admins are adding players to leagues and then setting their entries manually. But I could see an intro page once you've joined a league, like set up your season, buy your entries and set it up that way.
Well, right.
Yeah, Alex made a good point here too. So it's kind of like you are
Yeah.
trying to survive
Mhm.
all the weeks, and each entry is like a life.
Yeah.
So if an entry
Perfect.
fails,
Yeah.
you lose a life.
Let's
Nice
capture that for our docs and fact section. That is
Thank you, Alex.
brilliant. Hey, so one question, Chashi, back at the beginning
up?
here. So I'm already looking at this going from the first look at all of the games you're part of. We're not turning an array of games. We're just returning 1 game right now.
Correct.
So just as I look through this, I'm thinking of data structures that are going to have to change just from that aspect to be able to show what users have an email address a part of what games, then list those. And then when they click on the game, it pulls in the game ID for the next page, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yep. So that's why the dynamic URLs are going to make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Because you see a lot of things are moving, a lot of entries are going, and we need that ability to put it into the URL.
It helps us to not have to store all of the games in state where really it's just when you pass in that game ID to the URL, it'll pull all the information for that game up right
Correct.
there.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I assume we're just going into this without an admin section to manage the game, correct?
That was actually my question too, Chris. I was wondering if we've done any
Mhm.
thoughts about that, because I know we're looking at like the user side, but what's Rudy going to see in all of this?
Correct. That is going to be in our next sprint. Jana is going to continue to design to flush the player dashboard out and then being able to edit the profile as well. And then after that, it will be all admin. And we're trying to get both these in for our launch for the alpha. So the admin side of it will be very similar, but obviously, you know, there's different screens that the admin will see. They'll see more, right? They'll see a lot more, but the look and feel will be the same. And so that way we can stay consistent as well.
And I'm assuming that the way that's going to work is if you register and your email is not a part of a game, then you will automatically become admin and be asked to create a league.
I mean, yes and no. We'll figure it out.
Okay, cool.
That's a
Never-
lot
we don't need to
technical.
figure that out now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just-
We're gonna do one game for now.
My brain is going down a cycle of
and
oh my God.
the
Okay.
way that we can fake it right now is in the database. Richard is registered on this game right now. We could switch to the Rudy's user manually, right? Then he becomes that. And then when we are open it up for others individuals to create their own games, then yes, if they're the first ones to create the game, they'll automatically get assigned the admin role or something. And then if we haven't talked about this yet,
Okay.
but co-owners and stuff, you can always change permissions and whatnot.
Cool. All
Yeah,
right.
one more thing we didn't touch on either that we'll have to work on is how we want to update the header navigation. Now that we have leagues, like we could introduce a quick switcher so you can see a list of all your leagues. Maybe introduce like the profile page, like Shashi was talking about.
Yeah.
And set a avatar image. That'd be really fun. Maybe
I'm thinking maybe
API
we can
grab.
exactly just get an API, not let them upload anything for now, but at least choosing some different avatars would be cool.
Or maybe different colors for your avatar.
Yeah.
You know.
And something very important that Jana brought up to me that I forgot was we are optimizing the player's dashboard for mobile because most of the times the user will use it on their phone anyways. But the admin is going to be desktop so they can see more, right? They're more real estate. It's going to be optimized for desktop. Obviously, Rudy can use it or any admin can use it on their phone as well. But the benefit is that an admin wants to see more because they're going to see more data, more results and all that stuff. So this one is more optimized for mobile.
Yeah, and I still have to make some decisions on, the smaller screen size. This was a tablet, so I could just get some of these designs together and then work backwards, right? So it's like, well, that's not responding very well. So what needs to truncate? What needs to drop off? All of those sorts of things. So I'll work on responsive designs for you all. But yes, it's a great point. This is should be easy to access from your phone.
Awesome.
It looks great.
At any time.
It looks great, Jana.
It really does.
Great job, Jana.
Yeah, it's been fun learning how to. This is a totally new design system I've been using. Shadcn. Did we decide what we want to call it?
Shadcn.
But I want to put it all together.
Shadcn.
Yeah, I want to do that.
It's really cool though.
Shitson.
Even looking at the Alive, that's a nice little pill that Shadcn has.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all this. I mean, Jana followed what Shadcn does anyway. So with the little customizations, so which makes it a lot easier for us to build off of as well. So
yeah, so I think we can keep pushing it to have a more unique look and feel.
Yeah, I agree.
But this is let's keep it fairly simple for now. Nail the interactions, nail the UX, understand, what data we need and how to structure things, and then we can start building on.
Cool. All right. If you have any other questions, please reach out to Jaina. I know Jaina is trying to do some design office hours too. And that way you can connect with her, because as we get going, there will be some questions here and there, and it'll be great to have that available. All right. So the next thing we have on the dock is a sprint demo from Chris. Chris, why don't you tell us what you're going to be demoing?
Yes. So I am going to be demoing a few things. I'm going to be walking through our auth context provider, and we're going to be talking about React Context and why we used it and how we implemented it into our application, and kind of just walk through the context provider, how it works, where we're using it, and some of the different pieces that are in there. We'll briefly touch on another state tool that we're using called ZooStand, and just show you how all of this is linked together for a lot of the data that we're using.
All right, cool. Let's get to it.
All right. So for those of you that don't know what a context provider is in React, a context provider is a way to wrap your application to be able to access state without having to drill down props into the components. So as long as one of your components is a child of the context provider, then you can access any of the data that you program into the context from any of the children. If you try to access it without, and here's what I mean by this, okay? This is our app layout right here. All right. Right now, our entire app is wrapped in this auth context provider. All right. So any route that we have is passed down here through the children. Okay. So that allows us to access everything that is in our context provider. So we'll go ahead and walk through it. If you have questions, go ahead and type so in the chat. Jason, if you could, and team, if you could keep an eye on that, let me know. And we'll go from there. All right. So for a context provider, we're using multiple different items, but the most important one at the very beginning of creating this is use context. Okay. So what we do is we first create a context type. So this is, what are we going to be using and providing as part of this context? Well, because this is an auth context provider, we are going to be providing, is the user signed in, true or false, right? And that'll help us in areas of the application. For example, in our login component right here, if the user is signed in, we redirect them to the weekly picks page, or this will eventually be that dashboard page that you just saw, but only if that happens. Otherwise, it's going to load the login page to have a user log in, right? And we pull that out of this use context right here. And we can use this because the application is wrapped in the context provider. So we're pulling in login account and is signed in. So that's this function right here to be able to log in. Here's our logout function that we're providing to any of the children inside of the context. And then our is signed in and our state for setting is signed in. All right. Once we get through defining our type, because we are using TypeScript in this project, I create an auth context. All right. It's just a variable where we say we're going to create a context that's going to be of type auth context type. And what this does is it's going to check the application or check our context provider to make sure that all of this is being provided by the provider. And you'll see that a little bit later on. So we're saying, all right, let's create a context. It's going to be auth context, create context of type this, and at first we're setting it to be null because we don't have any data set in there. We haven't done anything yet. We're not actually in the component itself yet. Then we create the auth context provider. We're passing in children, right? So when we wrap it over here in the layout, right, these two items become the child of the auth context provider. So these nav is one of the children, and then any of our routes, any of our pages that we pass in is a child as well. So there's our children. It's just of type React node. And then we set our state for where we're using use state. So in this instance, is signed in, set is signed in, right? So we're saying is signed in as Boolean, and we go down here and we just set it as default. Right now, we're assuming no one is logged in. So we have that set to false, okay? This next step, this next item that we're bringing in is we're using a state manager called ZooStand. All right. And that you don't need, you can access it from any component. It doesn't have to be within an auth context provider. And when we talked about this, Shashi and I were going through and I was asking us, why are we not just putting everything in the auth context provider? Well, there may be an instance that something is not wrapped in the auth context provider. And really all we want the auth context provider to do is to check, is the user logged in or not logged in, and provide a way for them to log in and log out, and us to be able to check and store that user information into state that is accessed elsewhere. So it keeps the component simple. I've seen context providers that are complex. They have not just auth, they have, they're providing information for authentication. A lot of times context providers are used to help out with dark mode and light mode. If you're trying to track what mode you're in, that's provided in a theme context provider. Some of you might have seen that in some of the apps that you've worked on or have seen demos of in the past. So all we're doing here is, rather than using the usual use state and React to set these, we're pulling in our user, reset user, and update user functions from our data store. And this is stored. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but all you have to know is this is just another way of using state. We're just not using use state, a part of React. We're using a third-party package. And then for routing, we're using router, for the use router, and we'll walk through that. So anything that's wrapped in this, when the page loads, we have this use effect. And because I'm pulling in the user here, by default, the user ID is blank and the email is blank. So it's going to check as soon as this user is loaded, it's going to say, hey, if the user ID is blank and the email is blank, let's go and get the user. Okay. And so it's going to continue to check to see if there's a user. So if we go down here to the get user function, we go get user, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check if session is local storage. Now, why are we checking local storage? Well, AppWrite, when you log in, it creates, when you're using the web SDK, not server-side rendering, but the web SDK, instead of using cookies, it's using local storage to store your session. So we're checking to make sure, does that session exist? And if that session doesn't exist, that means a user isn't logged in. It just returns. Otherwise, if the user does exist, if the user is logged in, then we're going to get the account, and then we're going to update the user with the user ID and the user email. Then, as soon as state recognizes, because what's happening when you're updating the user is you're updating the user object. Once that user object is updated in state, it's going to trigger this use effect to run again. And it's going to go, hey, user ID and user email, we got information there. We're going to set is signed in to true. And then that is where in the login page, as soon as is signed in true is set, it routes you to the weekly picks. So you can kind of see the logic there for why that is signed in is really only going to be used in this login component. Now, the other things that we're providing with our auth context provider is we're using this to be able to log in, because we do have a specific way that we're logging in. So when we log in, we're going to create an email and password session, and we're going to pass in the user email and user password. So if I go here to the login, you can see we are pulling in from context the login account function. So if I go back here to our auth context provider, here's our login account function that we're pulling in. So when the user hits submit in that form, it's going to use this, and it's going to pass in the user credentials, and we're going to pull out the user email and the user password. Once this happens, then we're going to go and get the user. So all this does is this returns a session ID. It does return the email, and it does return the user ID for that logged in user. But we like to pull that directly from the user account.get. And that is the recommended way that Appright has, told us to be able to get that specific user.
So what you're saying is the get user, can you go into that function?
Yes, right down here.
Yeah, so it goes through and then it does the account.get.
Correct.
That's what Appright recommends us to do.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So, so as soon as we get the user, it's going to we already know there's a session. It's going to route them over to the weekly picks page. And if there's any issue here, there's going to be an error, and we're going to return that error. On logout, when the user logs out, we're just going to delete the session, and then we're going to set signed in is false, and then we're going to reset the user, which resets the user in the ZooStand store back to be user ID blank, and user email is going to be an empty string. So we're deleting it out. We're going to delete the session. We're going to go ahead and set signed in as false, and then we're going to reset that user. And then one last thing down here, I did do that. This is the helper function that I wrote for the is session and local storage. And if you come down here, this is the name of the local storage item that is set by Appright. We did not hard code this in. This is a part of the Appright Web SDK. And so what I do is I go, all right, we're going to check to see if cookie fallback is there. If it's not there, or if the string is empty, which is weird. When you close a session, it actually sets the cookie to be a string of 2 brackets. That's not an array. It's a string. It's really weird. I don't know why, but that's what it is. We're going to say, hey, return false, which means
it's a feature. It's a feature.
Yeah. So in this instance, it says, hey, there is no local, or the string equals this. We're going to return false. And then when that returns false, it gets us out of this function. And then we're back to waiting for someone to log in. But if it gets past this point, you return true, the user is logged in, and then we go from there. Now to finish, so right now we talked about, just to kind of do a little bit of a recap, we set some type for our user credentials. We set our type for the auth context. We created our auth context by using the create context, saying it's of type auth context type. So we're only using these items here. And then we create our auth context provider function, where we're then going to set state for the values, or use the data store from ZooStand to pull in all of our state for whatever we're using, whether it's user is signed in and whatnot. And then we have our use effect that is going in and saying, hey, do we have a user logged in or not? And then once it goes through that process, it sets them in signed in to true. Now, once you get done, and in a context provider, whether it's an auth context provider, whether it's a theme context provider, you're going to want to provide these, because you need the children of this component need access to that. Remember, in our case, the children of the context provider is what it's wrapped around, which here is our nav bar and any route that we're passing in. So what we do down here is there's multiple, I've seen this done multiple ways, but what I like to do is I like to memorize I like to use memo in our context value. And what this does is it avoids re-renders just on every page reload. So really what's going to happen here is we're saying, hey, for our context value, we're going to provide the is signed in. This could change, right? So that's why we provide this as a dependency. If is signed in changes, it's going to update the values right here. But functions don't change. They're just a function, which is why we don't need to add it as a specific dependency. Once that's done, then we return our auth context.provider, the values of what we're providing. So all the functions and or items and state that we're providing to the children are provided right here. So we're saying the value equals the context value, and that's it. Now at the bottom, I've seen some developers create custom hooks outside of the provider. I like to create the hook to use the context inside of the provider file itself. And the reason why is because we can create this throw error. So what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, export this function, use auth context. And we're going to use the auth context right here. So we're saying use context, auth context. If there is no context, meaning if it's trying to reach something, but it can't because it's not a child, it's going to say use auth context must be used within the auth context provider. So it provides you that error. That way, if we have, let's say, a custom route that's using its own layout file, and for whatever reason, we need to access this auth provider, and in the layout, we didn't wrap our content in that provider, and we go to try to access it using, like, let's say this login page was somewhere separate, it wouldn't be able to access. We would pull in the use auth context, but it wouldn't work because it's not wrapped inside of it. And that's kind of the demo of the quick demo of the auth context provider. Yeah. I don't know if you want me to go into the ZooStan store, but that's kind of what
No.
I'm talking about, Shashi.
No, this demo is just the provider. So, So my question to you is, have you thought about making this into an NPM package?
You know, I've actually been wanting to make an NPM package. Like, I'm looking for a reason to do it. And here's why a part of me goes, if I were to turn this into an NPM package, the things that I would have questions on is, you know, I would assume that we're using React to manage state for everything. And then maybe there's a way to,
or you could pass a prop in and
correct,
that it would do its spiel. Yeah.
But I have thought about that just because, and here's the thing, I have an Obsidian. I use Obsidian to store my code snippets. And so I have a whole write-up for auth context provider. I'm going to do a blog post on it. I'll do a video on it just from my experience. Now, I'm not saying, Shashi, that my way is the right way to do it. There's so many ways I've seen people do this. This is just how I've learned to do it over time and how I like to do it with.
I mean, if you look at all the NPM packages out there, right, there's many authors that do things the way that they feel is a way that they want to share it to the world. And it's the same thing, is you have to think that like it's a way, it's an option for individuals to use. And if they're like, hey, this can save me a lot of time, I'm going to use it. Because I think based off our conversation, there wasn't anything out there for app rights authentication, right? No provider.
No. Right sometimes, you know, some of the all-in-one companies that are doing some of the things provide that. They don't, so we had to create our own, and that's okay. I mean, it's not. It didn't take long. It probably took 3 days to get all of the context set up over time.
I wonder if you can contact somebody and create this NPM package and then add it into their open source project. That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
But anyway, I think this is great. You should definitely cut this video and make it into your own, and then also write your blog and all that stuff too. Because I know you've been wanting to do this, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely something that you want to do because I know right now you're a developer, but you're also doing a little bit of DevRel too, and that's kind of the
Mhm.
role you have. And this is a great step to do that, to
Yep.
showcase what you've built and what you're doing for the team, and not just the team, but for our sponsor AppRight as well.
Yeah, no, AppRight's been once you get through like any third party package, like any provider you're using, once you figure out the documentation and the syntax, they're great. They're great to work with. So I've really enjoyed working with AppRight. Huge shout out to their support team on Discord as well.
Oh, 100%.
Super responsive.
Fantastic support team.
Fantastic. And even helping, not just answering a question, but helping to clarify why something is happening in a way that maybe we don't expect, but that they have it a certain way. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that these are the expected outcomes. And that's been super helpful when we think there's an error on our end and like, nope, that's expected. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So really shout out to their whole support team.
Quick response,
Yeah.
very, very quick to give answers and stuff like that. Yeah. So anybody have any particular questions, comments about this demo?
Hopefully I didn't go too fast, y'all. I know it's context is a huge thing to go through.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all recorded, so we can play it back. Silence means none. Okay, cool. Thank you, Chris, for demoing that. I know we're coming up to the hour, but I just wanted to close with a few thoughts here. Our sprint is ending. Our sprint 2 is ending. We're doing 2-week sprints. We switched to 2-week sprints. That way we have deadlines to go off of. And because Jana has these designs, Jana, myself, and Jason are going to go over these designs, create user stories, and then create tickets from them. And then our next sprint will start next week. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll continue to do the same thing. So I'm going to do some sprint planning, estimations with Fibonacci and all that, so that we can get some accurate costing. But I think the best thing is that an individual from our team landed an internship. I'm not going to spill the beans. The individual will share that on Monday. But I think it's just a testament to this project on what it was meant to do. It was meant to kick these people off this project because they got a job, which is perfect. And it's just music to my ears, because starting this project, I didn't know what it was going to become, what it can do. All I knew that there was a void that needed to be filled, and I wanted to kind of see if we can do something with this. And it is being proven that there's a project like this is much needed for boot campers, self-taught people, and individuals that need more experience, because we're building this for an actual client. We're running a corporate process. We're doing sprints. We're doing planning. We're doing code reviews. Quality checks are there. Like, I don't let nothing go by. Like, they have this meme out there, which they'll probably share, that my code reviews are very thorough. And if it doesn't meet our quality bar, it's not going to go through. Yes, some things are okay, because we'll do like a post-release ticket or whatnot, but this is how you set the standard, and this is how you increase your ability to become a better coder, is mostly through code reviews, team collaboration, a lot of failing, right? That way you can learn from it. And I think these individuals know that it's a lot of tough love, because if your brain cannot figure some stuff out on your own, then the next task that comes, how are you going to get better, right? The only way to get better is to understand how to get through those thresholds and those blockers, not particularly on your own, but to do it with some guidance, to do it with a team, and to understand how to get through those hurdles. Because the next time around, when that particular issue comes up, you already know how to get past it, and you're gonna continue to progress. And like I tell some of these people, this is the easy part. Like, once you get on a job in a company, it gets harder. The team dynamic is different. The tech stack might be older. The process is going to be much more thorough. And it's better that you learn now, because when you go to it, you already have some experience doing that. So I'm excited for this individual, and I hope that more of these team members will continue to land jobs. And I'll tell you right now, if you love what you heard, if you like what we're doing, definitely check everybody out. follow them. This journey is going to continue for a while. We're going to continue to build this project out and continue to add team members as others leave as well, because I do feel that this is a kind of a project that everybody needs that's trying to break into tech, and hopefully this will resonate with the rest of you as well.
So yeah, in short, hire us, please.
Everybody's available. Take them off my hands, please. How about that? Like, take them off my hands.
And one side note, if any of you watching are going to render ATL, Jason and I are going to be there. We're speaking on Tuesday night at a ATL JavaScript meetup, and then we'll be at the conference all week. So come say hi to us. We would love to talk with you. And you are on mute, Jason.
About Gridiron Survivor.
About Gridiron Survivor. We're talking about Gridiron. And come talk to us about anything. You like
anything.
Yeah, whatever.
But specifically, our lightning talk at the meetup will be about our experience here.
Yes, that is correct.
Yep, which is going to be awesome, because the exposure for you guys are going to be fantastic, but also for the team too, to provide that additional exposure. But last words for myself are, just thank you for coming and watching. And if you're going to watch later, thank you for just watching and listening to us. And we hope that we're providing some value to those that are just learning and growing. But also thank you for following our journey with this project. It's been long, but it's going to continue. And we're learning a lot. I get a lot of feedback from individuals every week that this is different in a good way, as well as feedback from others outside looking in too. Many eyes and lurkers are out there, which, thank you for doing that, because eventually we'll all connect and meet each other in person someday. So cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.